Mora. American author, poet, educator, teacher, college instructor, professor, university administrator, activist, literacy advocate, and so much more. A little bit about her background. Her name is Patricia Estela Mora. She was born on January 19th, 1942, in El Paso, Texas, border town between Mexico and the United States. She's Mexican American. Her background, culture, and experiences of growing up between the U.S. and Mexico have shaped her work. She is the oldest of 4 children and mother to 3 grown children. A little bit about her education. Mora received her undergraduate and graduate degree from the University of Texas at El Paso. She also received an honorary doctorate in humane letters from the State University of New York, Buffalo. Her work and purpose. Mora began to write when her children were young. It was then that she noticed that something was missing in the existing literature and in her childhood educational experiences. It wasn't until she began to write that she was able to tap into what she called a vein of gold. This was her Mexican heritage, which had been absent in all of her schooling, having received an only English education. This void in her educational experiences was one of the reasons that it has been her mission to write stories about the Mexican culture and language, and also to represent the beauty, richness, and diversity that exists within it. The Mexican American experience and heritage and the positive representation of these has been central in her work. The importance of making a connection. In many interviews, Mora has discussed the importance of the reader making a connection. She has stated that when a reader connects with what they are reading, and if they can identify with the character, the culture, and/or the language, this makes them want to read. This is very important for Mexican American children because literature that they can identify with is limited. They need to see themselves in the stories that they read. They need to have positive representation. Mora's work allows Mexican American children, bilingual children, to make a connection. The stories she writes about are rich in Mexican culture and the Spanish language. They are authentic, relevant, and are presented in an unbiased fashion. They are appropriate and accessible for English learners. Pat Mora's books are highly appropriate and accessible for English learners and emergent bilinguals because they allow the reader to make authentic connections, which can also activate their background knowledge. It is these connections that allow the reader to identify with the bicultural and bilingual characters and experiences that are illustrated in her books. The topics are relevant to the Mexican American cultural and linguistic experience. It is these above-mentioned characteristics that can increase reading comprehension and success for English learners. Diversity in her books. Mora incorporates the Hispanic culture experiences in the Spanish language in a way that is genuine and engaging for the reader. Her books offer positive representation of the Hispanic community. Her works range from children's books, young adult books, prose and poetry, many of which are bilingual in Spanish and English. Children, teens, and adults, particularly those that share the Mexican American heritage, language, and experience, are given a voice they can identify with in many of her stories. For a listing of her books, you can visit the website below. El Día de los Libros, El Día de los Niños. Founded in 1996 by Pat Mora. El Día de los Libros, El Día de los Niños, loosely translated Book Day, Children's Day, is a day that is celebrated on April 30th every year. The purpose was to promote multicultural and Hispanic literacy. It is meant to engage teachers, librarians, parents, and children in an array of readings, activities, and games. You can get more information on how to celebrate this day along with lessons and activities and games on the website below. Some of her accomplishments. Mora has received numerous awards and honors for her contribution to childhood, Hispanic, and multicultural literacy. For a listing of these, you can visit her website below, www.patmora.com. The book that I chose to take you through a book walk is Tomas and the Library Lady. Here's a quick summary of it. Tomas and the Library Lady is a story of hope and possibilities. It illustrates Tomas as a young boy and his experiences migrating to different states with his family to work in the fields picking the crops of the season. With the advice and wisdom from Papa Grande, his grandfather, he learns many stories and the potential of learning so many more in the library. It is in the library that he meets a kind librarian who opens up his world to endless possibilities with reading. It is a story based on the real life story of Tomas Rivera, who was the son to migrant farm workers. And with his hard work, love of reading, and educational pursuits, came to be the chancellor of the University of California, Riverside. I have added a website here in case you want to ever incorporate this book in your lesson planning, and it has a narration by Pat Mora. I thought this might be a good resource for some of you who may use the book in the future. Some learning activities will be in the following 2 to 3 slides. Some of the things that I thought of that would be possible were what I have outlined here. The grade level that I had thought of for this text would be grade levels 1st through 3rd grade. You can really incorporate it into any of these grades, depending on the ability of the students, where they're at academically in their reading comprehension and listening and reading skills. Some of the themes in the text are bilingualism, the role and importance of family, grandparents, moving for work or migrating, love of reading, changing roles, tradition of storytelling. Some of the reading skills that some of the activities I mentioned can be used are prediction, inference, character traits, vocabulary building, and reading comprehension. This is especially important for English learners and emergent bilinguals. Some learning activities. If a teacher wanted to, they can do an anticipatory set where you show the students the cover of the book, pose the question to the class based on the cover. What do you think the story would be about? This is using their predicting skills. You could also tell the students that you will be reading the story to them and you want them to imagine they are the main character, therefore using their imagination or visualization. You can read the story, focusing on their listening and comprehension skills. Individual work could be students telling a story. This can be done in the form of a journal entry. The student becomes the character and writes about how they would feel if they had to migrate from state to state. Group work could include a discussion. Students could discuss how they think Tomas felt that he had to migrate several times a year. They could share individual stories with the people in their group. Another thing, stressing inclusion, could be if we had a student like Tomas in our classroom, what types of things could be done to make him or her feel more welcomed? For more learning activities, that could be just some suggestions, some ideas that I found. Truthfully, this is such a rich text and there's so much out there. This is just the website that I found. If you would like to use this text, you can click the link and there's more lessons and learning activities outlined on there. These are my sources. And thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about Pat Mora. I highly recommend her for anybody that is kindergarten through elementary, 6th up to 5th and 6th grade. And truthfully, her work is so extensive that it really can be incorporated into middle school and high school and even after that. Okay, thanks a lot for listening. Bye-bye.